right. Thank you, Sherbert Underground. In March Madness. We are back to infect the airwaves through our unique blend of fantasy baseball enlightenment on RotoRob Fantasy Baseball Weekly Podcast, heard every Thursday evening at 9 p.m. EST on Blog Talk Radio. We are into early April now, which means we're just 3 days away from the start of the 2015 regular season. This week, Shane Victorino has beaten out Rusney Castillo for the right field job in Boston. The Mets have given a 4-year extension to outfielder Juan Lagares, and Anthony Rendon's knee will force him to begin the season on the DL. We're going to cover some of these stories and many more over the next 70 minutes or so pull up a beanbag chair and get comfy. I'm RotoRob, and my guest this week is Tim McLeod from Pattonandco. How are you this evening, Tim?
Well, I am just fine, Rob. A little bit embarrassed for Boston Red Sox fans, but hey, it could be worse. Their lack of abilities to put together a team is almost embarrassing, at least for me anyways. How's things in the big city, Rob?
Well, I'm doing better than Jared Cosart, who had been involved in sports betting, investigated by MLB, and what a shit show that'll be if it turns out that he's more involved than he says he is. My God,
well, yeah.
You following that story, Tim?
Well, yeah. For those that are gambling on a good season out of them, they might be shocked.
Yeah, it's I don't know what's going to happen there, but you hate to hear stuff like this. Anyhow, I want to remind you the chat room and phone lines are open. Let's see, right now, just me there in the chat room waiting for Tim to arrive. If you can find your way in there, that'd be super.
Blog Talk hates me, Rob. I tried last Sunday to get in there for 45 minutes and finally gave up on it. I don't know. It can't be a Canadian because they let you in, right?
I'm in there, so yeah, unless it's simply a northern Canadian thing. There's obviously no issues regarding cross-border travel in this particular scenario. If you're having problems getting in, guests can call us as well at 347-827-35. We'll answer. Now, before we get to the news of the week, I want to talk about what's going on over at RotoRob.com. On the baseball side of things, the big push now is on the 2015 RotoRob MLB Draft Kit, of course. On Tuesday, we released our top 50 second base rankings, and we're currently wrapping up our top 70 prospect rankings, our top 10 rookies I was just working on before I came on the air, and the top 50 shortstop rankings, also working on those before I came on the air. Also, a final reminder, your last chance to buy the 2015 Fantasy Baseball Guide that magazine is out. Tim and I both work on that. We're offering a promo that will entitle you to a $1 savings if you buy it online. Just use promo code ROB15. And if you're drafting this week, you definitely want to have that by your side. Football. Things have been quiet lately, but watch for some off-season content coming soon. We're working on something. We have the Wire Troll written by Dakota Case every Sunday. It did make its season finale this week, highlighting Cam Atkinson. Next week, look for the season-wrapping Wire Troll All-Star team. On the basketball side of things, we have the Wire Troll every Saturday, written by NBA editor McCade Pearson. This week was highlighting Zach LaVine. Video games, nothing new this week, but new games being added constantly, so check back soon. We are now just 10 articles away from reaching 4,075 posts in the site's history, so it should reach that mark by the middle of April. Also, don't forget to check out the latest feature on RotoRob. It's called Instigator. It's located in the right sidebar of the site and features sports trivia to test your knowledge. You can even compete head-to-head against your friends. Have you given that a look yet, Tim?
No, but, one of these days I'm definitely going to have to check it out, Rob. I can probably play just with with that multiple personality thing I got going. I can probably just play with myself and see how that works out first, eh?
Well, I understand that you are very good at playing with yourself, so good luck with that, Tim.
You followed up on that one well. Thank you.
My pleasure. At any rate, my point is it's a new feature. It's kind of fun. Obviously, everyone is into sports who comes to the site. So check out some sports trivia, see how smart you are. It's kind of fun. I like it. Anyhow, the top stories this week. First of all, I want to talk about the fact that Vegas, Tim, apparently really likes the Cubs. Now, at the end of last year, at the end of the World Series in 2014, the Cubs were 40-1 odds to win the World Series in 2015. Now, after an off season of some wheeling and dealing, and obviously some maturation of some young talent, etc., and a bunch of new hirings in the dugout, anyhow, they are now 16-1, which is a tremendous eyes in just based on the off season. So I want to ask you, what's the dealio here? Do they deserve to be raised that much? I mean, it's not like they're a favorite, but clearly Vegas likes them more. What's your thoughts?
I think we all know the way the game's played, Rob. Obviously, at 40-1, there was a lot of money heading in the direction of the Cubs. And the more money that heads in the direction of a team, we all know what the end result is. The odds drop because Vegas doesn't want to be, it's a big game, right?
But come on, Tim. How much money could be spent on the Cubs winning the World Series? 40-1 down to 16-1 in just a matter of, say, 3 months is a tremendous difference. I mean, it's not just about the money that's being spent on it. Obviously, the odds makers believe that, not anywhere near a favorite. The Cubs have done quite a bit this offseason to improve their chances. Now, let's talk about some of those things, shall we?
Yeah, well, that almost sounds like one heck of a plan, Rob. But it's like every fall. Okay, the difference being, every fall the Leafs are 200-1, and hey. Come 2 weeks into the season, they're at the same level. The difference between the Cubs is you're right. Obviously, there was some belief that the team is ready to make a move. I think it's false, but lead on.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. Since losing over 100 games in 2012, they've slowly been creeping back to respectability. In 2013, they gained 5 wins. It's a modest total. Mm-hmm. Last year, they bumped their total by another 7 wins. However, they were still outscored by 100 runs, so obviously this is a team, still has some work to do. But at this rate, technically they should be a 500 team this season. I can't see them making the playoffs for the first time since 2008 this year. But next year, it's quite possible. I mean, they finished 15-15-1 this spring. Not bad, but obviously nothing to judge anything by. Still, I like the fact that they started out 0-6 and then went 15-9. That showed me a little something. But let's talk about the future of this team, Tim. I mean, Jorge Soler saw a ton of action this spring and looked very productive. Having him for a full year will be amazing. Chris Bryant, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, all he did was hit .425 with 9 homers and 15 RBI. I mean, really? Javier Baez remains one of the top prospects in the game, but continues to struggle to make contact. Okay. You got Junior Lake, a nice extra outfielder, brings a lot of speed to the table. I mean, we're talking about the best farm system in the majors here, Tim. Kyle Schwarber, Albert Almora, Addison Russell, just to name a few, will be arriving soon. I mean, what about some of the offseason moves they made? Anything catch your eye there?
Well, I think the big thing with the Cubs is, they're heading in the right direction. And as you mentioned, they have a great group of young kids ready, chomping at the bit to get in that lineup and make a difference. For this year, I think they're, if they can play 500 ball, I would consider it to be a good year. Moving forward, though, into 2016, that's when the expectations should seriously rise. I'm anticipating seeing, Addison Russell in the mix. Bryant will be in the mix. Probably Almora. Schwarber, I don't know where they're going to play him, because unless there's a DH, unless the NL goes to a DH rule, they're simply going to run out of positions. Pitching, Lester, Arrieta. I think we're going to see C.J. Edwards in the second half, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table. So, for 2015, I think it's going to be one of those years. It's going to be exciting because we're going to start to see some of these kids arrive. But 2016 is when things get serious, and 2017, Cubs might have reason to buy playoff tickets.
Yeah, well, I agree with that assessment. I mean, don't forget, Miguel Montero's been added to bring some offense to the catcher position. Tommy La Stella was acquired from Atlanta and looks like a great addition. You got Anthony Rizzo, poised to be a 40-homer man. They brought in Dexter Fowler, great top-of-the-order threat there. I mean, Jason Hamill looked so much better with the Cubs than he did in Oakland trade deadline, but now he's back with the Cubs. More as an ace, assuming his arm's okay. But perhaps most important than anything is new manager in Joe Madden, a proven winner, and his goal is to get the Cubs to be way more aggressive on the base pass. He's always kind of managed like a National League manager over in the American League, hasn't he?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Madden can do with that lineup. And let's face it, it's a great opportunity. If Theo and Madden can bring a World Series to Chicago, there will be a statue on every one of the four corners surrounding Wrigley, Rob.
Absolutely. Well, they open the season Sunday against the Cards in the MLB opener, and that's a great way to get some kind of early measuring stick against a perennial NL Central power. Last year, of course, the Cubs were one of the worst offensive teams, finishing 26th in runs and 21st in OPS. But they did have power. They were actually 5th in the majors in homers, but 21st in team ERA, and the rotation was really the problem there, 20 with a 4.11. The bullpen was better, 0.61 middle of the pack. And the fielding was meh. They were ranked 18th in fielding percentage. Not awful, but not exactly good either. The bottom line is, to me, it seems clear the Cubs are committed to building a winner, notwithstanding some personnel decisions they made this spring, which we'll talk about shortly, but not for 2015. I think if they win 85, it should be considered a very successful season, given how much talent is on the way. But here's the big question, Tim. Of course, they haven't won the World Series since 1908. When will that end?
Well, I don't know. I seem to remember watching the last World Series victory on TV, Rob, and it has been a long time coming. It really has.
You didn't even let me reach for that. Usually, I get an opportunity to slam dunk you with the whole age thing. You just proactively eliminated my opportunity to ask you if you remembered that. Seriously.
Well, Rob, this ain't my first rodeo, bro.
You saw that coming, eh?
Well, I read that like a cheap novel.
All right. 1908, come on, Tim. I mean, I might have reached for that with Buck, but I know that you didn't grow up until the 20s. Come on.
Well, yeah, exactly. Much better, Rob. Much better. much better.
Still with the Cubs. Obviously, the big headline this week was the freak out over the Chris Bryan situation. So much so that the union is considering filing a lawsuit in the wake of Bryan being sent back to the minors by the Cubs. Now, all he did this spring, as I mentioned, was hit 9 homers, drive in 15 runs, and bat .425 in 40 at-bats. Clearly, he's not ready for the bigs, right, Tim?
Well, actually, no, he's not, Rob, because where is he going to play? He saw very, very few opportunities to play third base, his natural position. Now they're talking about the outfield. The whole gist for me on this whole situation is the rules are what they are. They were agreed to by both management and the Players Association. And for every Cubs fan right now who is screaming and yelling, take a deep breath, because would you rather have Chris Bryant for the first 12 days of the 2015 season, or would you rather have him 5 years from now for a full season when your team is quite possibly a World Series contender? So take a deep breath, relax. 12 days without Chris Bryant will do absolutely nothing and change absolutely nothing in the Cubs' plans, and especially for 2015, Rob?
Well, it certainly will help them financially.
Why? The place is sold out constantly.
I'm talking about in terms of kicking off his service.
Oh, yeah, well,
starting
the
service clock.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, why would the Cubs want to do something like Theo didn't do that for Pedroia. He didn't do it for any of his top talent. Why would he do it for Chris Bryant?
See, now, Tim, I've known you for a long time, and I always thought that this was a massive pet peeve. I thought you were going to be frothing at this whole, the way the system is structured, baseball's economically structured, to basically keep the top players in the minors for a little while anyhow. It's freaking ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you know what, Rob? I won't disagree with you. I totally agree with you. It is ridiculous. But at the same point in time, you know what? Those are the rules.
Since when do you just accept the rules?
Well, I have changed. I have grown up. I've put on my big boy pants, and I'm now the ultimate liberal when it comes to my baseball perspective, Rob.
I don't know, man. It sounds like you're pretty conservative, actually. You're just sucking up the rules, and you're okay with it. What happened to the rebel?
Well, you know what? Because at this stage of the game, there is no point in being a rebel. The bottom line is, in 2016, when it's time for all the big boys to sit down at the table and negotiate a new CBA, you can be rest assured that this is going to be a rather huge topic of conversation. I'm already on record as saying I think it could lead to potentially a work stoppage. Something has got to be done. But at this point in time, hey, it is what it is. And until that new CBA is negotiated, hey, we just live with it.
Oh, well, that attitude doesn't exactly make for entertaining podcast, Tim. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, well, let's
I've never claimed to be Gypsy Rose Lee. I'm not going to entertain you all the time, Rob.
I want you to get out there and strut your stuff, Tim. Now, listen to me, Tim. In other sports, the top prospects go straight to the pros. I mean, hockey, your Sidney Crosbys, your Alex Ovechkins, they get drafted, they go straight to the pros. LeBron James, blah, 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 obviously, straight to the pros. Football, your Peyton Mannings, whatever, they go straight to the pros in every sport except baseball. Now, baseball moans about how its draft it can't stack up from an interest perspective to other sports. It's not this glorious televised event that the other sports have. Well, to me, one of the major reasons why is because there's a disconnect. The average fan, I'm talking about the average fan. I mean, the hardcore fans understand how important the MLB draft is. But the average fan can't identify with a kid when he won't see that kid in his team's uniform for several years. I mean, that makes sense, right?
Well, the bottom line is when they sit down every June and do the draft, the interest in the 873rd player off the board isn't quite there. You're drafting.
We're talking about the top players.
Okay, even the top players, Rob. You're looking at 18-year-old kids out of high school. You're looking at college kids who, for the most part, can and do arrive within 1 to 2 years. But baseball's a long grind. They don't have the feeder system called the NCAA that operates as a minor league system as football does.
Well, I mean, they do. It's just different. I mean, not necessarily all the top players go to college, play college baseball. Baseball gets players from all over the place. They get players from internationally. They get players from high school, as you said. I mean, if they lure them with enough money, they can get them to skip college. But you see my point in terms of the average fan. I'm Joe Blow, the average fan of the Toronto Blue Jays, let's say. I mean, I'm not a hardcore baseball fan. I'm an average baseball fan, but I hear who they're drafting. I never heard of him because he's not hyped at all, because they don't hype prospects in baseball the way they do in football or basketball or hockey. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, that sounds great. I read the scouting report, but I don't see this guy on my team for 2 or 3 years. I've forgotten about him by then,
Well,
like there's no momentum there, with the hype.
Well, it's just a different game, Rob. When you start looking, hey, we live in a world that is very instant everything, instant gratification, yada, yada, yada. And in baseball, it simply does not work like that. The talent, for the most part, coming out of the high school and college ranks, is not major league ready. They're not ready to assume a position in the. Hey, if you got a 20-year-old pitcher who is ready, you can be rest assured he'll be there. Ask Jose Fernandez. He'll tell you.
Well, pitchers is a different story. I mean, obviously the big difference with high school and college baseball versus the pros is that they're using different equipment. They're all of a sudden switching to a wooden bat, which is a completely different experience. And some players will seamlessly make that transition. Others will struggle with it. So that's a biggie right there, I think, for a hitter anyhow.
Well, sure. Bryce Harper was hitting 500-foot home runs in high school with an aluminum bat. I don't think he's hit too many 500-foot home runs since becoming a member of the Nats.
Well, not 500-foot homers, but pretty close in some instances when he's been healthy. So let me ask you this union litigation. And Scott Boras, of course, is Chris Bryant's agent, so he's fire, and he won't let it go. Is this going to go anywhere or what?
No, it's going to go absolutely nowhere. It's the collective agreement spells out the terms by which both parties can and do act, and it ain't going nowhere. Say, Scott Boras is doing his job. His job is to get his client into the game as soon as he possibly can, so at the end of 4, and that's not 5 years, he can then take and sit him up on a big throne and have the Yankees, Red Sox, Angels drool all over signing him for $400 million. He's going to have to wait a year, Rob.
All right. Well, I'm sure we haven't heard the end of this.
No, probably not, but the bottom line is until the issue is addressed through the collective bargaining process, hey, I'm sorry, Scott. I know you want to see this guy get that next big deal, but you're going to have to wait a year.
I got to tell you, Tim, I'm a little in your accepting attitude. It seems a little lazy. I don't know. You just, that 60s rebel edge that you once upon a time seems to have gone by the wayside, and I just don't know you anymore, man. You talk like a sellout.
Well, ask me for my thoughts on Jeffrey Loria or Rob Manfred, and you'll get a different reaction, Rob. Promise.
All right, let's talk some baseball. Let's review some of the happenings from this evening, or rather this afternoon. Now, you were watching that Mets-Cardinals game. What went down there today, Tim?
We had a fine offensive display today. It ended up hey, Harvey was stellar again. 4 innings pitched, 3 hits, 4 Ks, no walks. Lance Lynn, who I'm very, very bullish on this year from a fantasy perspective, he went 6 innings, 3 hits, 4 Ks, no walks. Definitely 2 stellar pitchers on display today with no offense on the board, Rob.
Yeah, not much to talk about from an offensive perspective there. And not a lot of offense in the first game I was watching, which was a Yankee split squad taking on the Tigers. The Tigers managed to hang on for a 3-2 win. For the Yankees, Slade Heathcote had a very nice game. He was 2 for 3 with a run and RBI. He's batting .355, .459, .419 this spring. Very productive spring. He also grounded into a double play, stole a base and got picked off, and even gunned down Avila at first base to complete a double play. So he was quite involved in this game. This is a former can't-miss prospect that's finally healthy and has put himself in position to get a call this summer. Of course, he was already reassigned to minor league camp on Monday, but has turned a lot of heads this spring. So nice to see that Slade Heathcote has kind of put himself back in the conversation in New York for a potential job at some point. Starting this game for the Yankees was Bryan Mitchell. He suffered the decent for 5 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 6 walks, 74, 26 of the more balls. He did not have a great spring, but looked pretty sharp to snuff out a scoring chance to end the fifth. He busted Vmart inside with a 97-mile-an-hour hitter to get him swinging, and really looked sharp doing so. All 3 runs came across in the fourth. Other than that, Mitchell wasn't bad at all. Now, he had been in competition for the 5th starter job, but wound up losing that to Adam Warren, and he will start the season at AAA and hope for an injury. For the Tigers, they got some good news as Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, and Jose Iglesias all wound up playing 9 innings for the first time this year. They've all been hampered by various injuries, but of course are expected in the opening day lineup. Nick Castellanos was the hitting star for Detroit. He was 1 for 3 with a 2-run, bases-loaded single. He's up to 259 for the spring with 10 RBI, but he's expected to bat 8th, not 7th this year, and that's a bit of a disappointment. It could cap how much improvement he'll show over his rookie effort. I still love this kid long-term, but we may need to wait a bit for the real explosion there. Starting this game for the Tigers was Angel Nesbitt. He tossed 2 shutout innings, had a 1-2-3 first inning, and then a double play helped him get out of a second without being scored upon. Now, this kid has never pitched above Double-A, but had a really good spring, 2.77 ERA in 12 games, struck out 9 in 13 innings. He's in the running for the final spot in the rotation with Justin Verlander heading to the DL. And he could have at least sealed himself a bullpen job with this outing, especially with Bruce Rondon landing on the DL with shoulder tendonitis. After that, it was a bullpen game for Detroit, as no one after that recorded more than 5 outs. Joba Chamberlain tossed 1 1/3 hitless innings for his first spring win, and then Rafael Dolis pitched a shutout for him for his first save. The other half of the Yankees were playing the Pirates. What happened there, Tim?
Well, I want to play a guess the player game with you, Rob. You up for that?
Okay, sure.
Okay, here is a statement. I want you to guess the player. The statement is, "He's been great," said Yankees co-chairman Hank Steinbrenner. "I'm very happy." Who are we talking about, Rob?
Could it be Alex Rodriguez?
Well, I tell you, of all the people for Hammer and Hank to want heaps of praise on, he's batting .286 with 3 homers, and apparently today he had some success at first base. How quick the jeers will turn to cheers if A-Rod can put it together. Final score today, 6-2 with the Yankees edging out the Pirates. Aaron Judge, 2 RBIs, and probably one of his last performances before being sent down. And I really want to see Judge in the majors, just so I can break out my old "Here Comes the Judge" T-shirt, Rob. That's important to me. A.J. Burnett, 4 solid innings. Yay, that probably won't last. Michael Pineda, on the other hand, 5 1/3, 6 hits, no walks, 1 earned run, 6 Ks. Liking Mr. Pineda heading into this season, Rob.
You know what?
What, Rob?
He could be their most important starter this year. I mean, Tanaka is like 1 pitch away from his elbow tearing at any time, right?
Correct.
We know CC Sabathia has been on the decline for several years, and I really don't see a major bounce back coming. They need Pineda to be all that this year if they're going to have any hope of even finishing 500, if you ask me. Yeah,
they definitely need a healthy Michael Pineda. And after the trials and tribulations of the past couple of years, I'm really rooting for the kid. I would love to see Pineda excel and Jesus Montero, just to make things interesting looking back at that deal that was made several years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that deal has really blown up in both teams' faces. Any other things to report from the Yankees-Pirates today?
No, other than the fact that, hey, I got to get that T-shirt out, Rob. It's important to me.
Well, I was working on my top 7. Anyway, what number? It's definitely made the cut. And, I think this is one that is not simply Yankee hype-driven prospect. He looks like the real deal. I mean, what he's done at a very young age is really impressive. He looks like he has a lot of tools. So
I was impressed when I saw him last year in the AFL, Rob. If you're talking about Judge still,
I am. He's an exciting prospect to watch. Now, switching gears, Tampa Bay, I was watching Tampa Bay against Philadelphia, and this was a one-sided affair as the Rays won 10-1. Chris Archer looked real good in his final tune-up before the season. For Tampa Bay, David DeJesus was 1 for 2 with a 3-run homer, and he struck out in his other at-bat. Now, he's made the Rays basically because he's owed $6 million this year, but this dude is not anyone's idea as a cornerstone of a rebuilding program. I think the Rays are hoping that he gets off to a nice start so he can trim some salary there. As far as Archer goes, he struck out 2 in 2 shutout innings, gave 1 hit with no walks. Through 27 pitches, 20 of them are strikes. Now, he's going to take the bump Monday against Beemore and recorded a 1.69 ERA this spring. Now, of course, with both Alex Cobb and Drew Smyly hurting, it is Archer who gets the opening day assignment for the Rays. But he looked like he deserved it in his last few outings. He did not give up an earned run in any of his last 3 spring outings, as it were. For the Phillies, they couldn't muster much offense at all, even on a day with the wind blowing out. In fact, the entire offense of the Phillies belonged to Odubel Herrera, who was 3 for 4 with a solo homer to account for all the Phillies' offense. This is a Rule 5 pick that has been really impressive this spring. In fact, impressive enough to win the center field job. Now, nothing against Herrera, but when a Rule 5 pick comes in and actually takes a starting job, it's a pretty sad reflection on the talent level of that organization. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Williams ripped for 9 hits and 6 runs in 5 2/3 innings. He wound up struggling with pitches up in the strike zone, and Tampa Bay just punished him for it. His ERA for the spring is now 7.40, and he's not won. But hey, at least he had 6 Ks. Now, the Phillies have Williams starting either the 3rd or 4th game of the season. And yes, it's another indication of how bad the Phillies will be. And as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more before we go off the air. Tim, Indians, Reds, Battle of Ohio, how did that go today?
Well, yeah, we had a definitely a solid outing by Zach McAllister. Moved his record to 3-1 this spring. 6 1/3, 9 hits, no walks, 4 Ks. Michael Brantley finally got out of the gate with a home run, which is good to see after a little bit of a slow spring. And Billy Hamilton went 2 for 3, bringing his batting average for the spring up to .213 with a .255 OBP. Billy the Kid is struggling, Rob.
Luckily, the games don't count yet, but, he got off to a slow start last year, and then he wound up having a decent year, so we'll see how it goes. The final game that we were watching this afternoon was Milwaukee-San Diego, which was won by the Padres 6-5. Tight game here. For Milwaukee, Ryan Braun went yard a game, and he has proclaimed that he is finally clear of the pain he dealt with in his thumb last season, so looks like he could rebound. He wound up going 2 for 3. That was his 3rd homer of the spring. He also had a double and the solo homer. Scored 2 runs. He's now batting .361 this spring and slugging .556. Of course, he had that 65-game drug suspension back in 2013 and then struggled last year to a career-low .266, apparently dealing with thumb in his pain. Excuse me, thumb. He had thumb in his pain. He had a thumb somewhere, I think. Definitely, but we won't discuss that. He had some pain all year, and it was a real problem. Now, offensive force this year, I think will tighten things up even more in the NL Central. I mean, we got the Cubs being better. If the Brewers' offense is better, the Pirates are probably going to be better. Things are getting even more interesting in the NL Central. Now, for Milwaukee, the starter was Matt Garza, and he was not good today. In 3 innings, he had 8 hits, 4 runs. He struck out 6, didn't walk anybody. In 65 pitches, 46 of them were strikes. His ERA soared to 6.95. But he said he felt really good today. The results sure didn't show it. For Garza, his K rate really needs to bounce back this year for him to be a valuable fantasy hurler. For the Padres, Matt Kemp has had a huge spring. Another 2 hits today, 2 for 3 with a run and RBI. He is up to 364, 386, 709. Nice slash line there for Tim. Got his 6th double and 14th RBI of the spring. Now, this power hitter, of course, was the key man off-season make. The Padres really spread around hitting stars, including Yonder Alonso, 2 for 3 with 2 runs. He is up to 321, also slugging 321. Got his first triple of the spring today. His on-base percentage has been in free for all, since leaving Cincy. But a hit rock bottom last year at 285, and that's not going to cut it. If Alonso doesn't get on base more than that, the Padres are going to have to rethink their starting situation at first base, I think. Finally, Will Middlebrooks, also 2 for 3. He had a run and an RBI and struck out once. He is up to 346 with a 404 on-base percentage. Got his 4th and 5th doubles in the spring and now has 9 RBI. Yet another of the Padre newcomers, Middlebrooks is trying to resurrect his career after flaming out a bit in Boston. So this spring's excellent showing is a very good sign for him. And for the Padres, Tyson Ross was the starter. He threw 3 shutout innings, gave up 2 hits, struck out 1, walked 1 pitches, 24 of them as strikes. His spring ERA is down to 2.49. Struck out 25 against 8 walks in 21 and a third innings. So he looks like he is ready to rock for the regular season. Now, Tim, were there any other news stories you wanted to discuss this evening?
Well, I was just going to throw in a quick 2 thumbs up for Ryan Braun and the fact that takes on a whole new important level of significance in Milwaukee, Rob.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. I mean, I'm not a Braun fan at all. I just thought he really... I don't understand why the stink didn't stick to him, the way it did all the other players. And I really, the way he got off on a technicality really rubbed me the wrong way a couple of years ago. I was glad to see that he did finally get a suspension, but I felt like he should have been suspended longer, and I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
No, Rob, and we don't really need to know how to rub you the wrong way. Sorry.
Oh, Tim, you've always rubbed me the wrong way.
It's got to be them sailor suits, Rob. Got to be them sailor suits.
Absolutely. Well, I was talking earlier about the Phillies and how bad they are going to be, and just how bad are they going to be? Will they be the worst team in baseball this year, Tim? Is that?
Well, they've got the potential, Rob. The big thing. The big thing that's going to change the landscape even further in Philly is, let's face it, at some point in time, Cole Hamels is probably going to move on to another team, and he is by far their best starting pitcher. Once Hamels vacates the scene, assuming he does, that's going to bring Philly to a pretty low spot in the pecking order, I think, Rob.
Well, assuming Ruben Amaro Jr. finally gets his head out of his ass and realizes that, maybe I should trade Hamels before Hamels gets hurt or something, the way I hung on to Cliff Lee too long and screwed the pooch there. I'm sorry, but he's an idiot. He really is. And I had this discussion with Peter Kreutz the show a couple weeks ago. We were talking about this very topic, was when Cliff Lee first got hurt. And, they decided they're going to shut him down instead of surgery. I just don't know why they haven't gotten off their ass and traded Hamels. His expectations for that trade are really far removed from reality. They're in fantasy land, and unfortunately, he just won't budge until he gets what he wants. I have a bad feeling about this, Tim.
Well, here's one for you, Rob. When you start looking at, we were discussing the Cubs earlier, and their rise over the past couple of years, and what should be anticipated as further growth over the next 2. The Cubs have a slew of prospects. Why isn't Theo talking to Ruben and Ruben to Theo? And we heard rumors that Amaro wanted Betts. Well, he might not. He's not going to get Betts or Swihart or whoever from Boston, but. You know what? Hamels is on a deal. He's owned, I believe, for the next 4 years on that contract, and at a reasonable amount for a starting pitcher of his quality. Hey, why don't the Cubs look at giving him a call, because they've certainly got the minor league talent, and they're going to need another ace-level pitcher to take that next step. What do you think?
Well, I'm sure the Cubs have been involved in discussions, and Epstein probably heard what Ruben Amaro wanted and said, okay, call me back when your crazy pills kick in. That's probably what he said to him.
Yeah, one of those reality versus Ruben living on another planet scenarios.
You probably asked for Chris Bryant and Javier Baez. Well, probably wouldn't. He might have wanted Baez, but he probably asked for Bryant and C.J. Edwards, let's say, and like a mid-level prospect. Ruben Amaro is holding out for the moon when really all it will take is Uranus to get this deal done.
I'm not going to touch Uranus, Rob.
All right, Tim. Enough about how bad Philly's going to be. Here's a question. Well, this is a big news story because Justin Verlander is headed to the DL for the first time in his career. And we all know that last year was a bit of a shit show for Verlander. How worried are you about Justin?
Well, I'm playing, I believe, in 12 leagues this year, Rob, okay? It's either 12 or 13. I have to add them up sometime in the next day or two. On all those teams, I don't own Justin Verlander anywhere. Does that answer your question?
So that was by design. You were steering clear of Verlander this year no matter what.
Yeah, he would have had to have fallen way, way, way too far, and he simply wouldn't. His best days are behind him, Rob, and I'm just not confident at all that we're ever going to see the Justin Verlander that we once did.
The drop-off was very quick, very quick. This guy, I know there was a lot of mileage on his arm, a lot of mileage. But he's a big boy and kind of take it. But wow, what we started to see last year was obviously concerning. And I guess if I were a Verlander owner, especially in Keeper League, it's the kind of situation where I almost want to hear he's hurt, because it's like it will help explain why he's sucking, ass this year. Then
well, yeah,
like,
and
I get it now.
If he is hurt, let's do what has to be done to make it better, fix it, and go forward.
Right. But you know what I mean? When you have a player that's established, especially a pitcher, because you never know with pitchers, when they've established a certain level, a certain standard of performance, and then they're clearly being, mailing in substandard performances start after start after start, and it's like, what is going on? Velocity's down, but there's no report of an injury. You're like, you want an explanation, right? It's like,
well,
and then when you finally hear that they're hurt, it's like, oh, okay, thank God. Now we can fix it because they have the technology to fix this shit. And, let's get him healthy and get him back to where he was. It might take some time, but we know he can. You really somehow just lost it all of a sudden.
No, I don't think Verlander lost it all of a sudden. There's a lot of miles there, but I think there's been an injury for a few years now. That's my gut.
How serious is this injury? What I'm saying is, do you think that this is going to keep him out for quite some time, or is he going to have some value this year at all?
Maybe in AL only leagues, Rob, but I don't see him having mixed value this year.
Wow. So you think Verlander sunk so low that he's not even a mixed league option anymore? That's amazing.
Yeah, that's like I said. I'm not looking forward to, when I look at a player like Verlander, okay, do I want to take a chance on a Daniel Norris at the back end of my draft, or do I want to take a chance on Justin Verlander?
Well, both of them, there comes with a lot of risk. When you're looking at a rookie pitcher, he's going to take his lumps at some point. When you're looking at a veteran with an injury factor there, you're taking the risk that he's going to bounce back or even worse, it's a flyer one way or the other. Do you go with the known commodity who's done it before and can do it, or you take a chance with someone on upside? It depends on how you play the game, I guess.
Well, yeah, you're in Verlander, you're looking at a pitcher that struck out a grand total of 58 less batters last year. Went from a 2.64 in 2012 ERA to a 3.46 to a 4.54 and a 1.40 WHIP. You know, when you start talking 4.54 ERAs and 1.40 WHIPs, that's not good, Rob. That is not good.
No, obviously it's not. But, you know, I mean, sometimes the numbers there's information behind the numbers that'll tell you even more, of course. It's just, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how Verlander has gone from one of the preeminent arm in the game pretty well. It's certainly the bull in terms of durability and, you know, as dependable as they come, not even a mixed league option. That blows my mind. And, you know, the thing was, Tim, his FIP and ex-FIP suggested he pitched better than his ERA was last year. I mean, not great, but better. So there's some room for hope there, assuming, you know, he's healthy. It's that drop of 2 strikeouts per 9 that's alarming. When you go from 8.95 Ks to 6.95 K in 1 year, whoa.
That's huge.
That's immense. Yeah, that was an immense drop. So we'll see what happens.
He kept his walk rates the same. He was just hit a little bit. He was hit a lot harder, Rob. That's it. That's all. And you know what? That drop in velocity has obviously made a huge difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you can't reach back and blow people away on a 3-2 count or whatever, or you got a 3, you're sitting on the hitter's sitting on a 3-1 count, and you don't have that 100-mile-an-hour or 98-mile-an-hour heat to rely on. And you've got to serve it up there and say, okay, well, here's my best, hit it. They hit it because they can hit it.
Well, sure, it's much the same as Tanaka this year, okay? He's had himself a good spring, but, you know, he's rearing back and he's hitting 90 miles an hour. Last year he was hitting 92, 94. If you're expecting to see the same Tanaka as last year with 2 to 3 miles an hour off the fastball, hold on to your shorts because you're in for a surprise, ladies and gents.
Yeah, well, Verlander's fastball since 2009, 95.6, 95.4, 95, 94.3, 93.3, 92.3. So it's been gradual, but then in the last couple of years, he's lost 1 mile an hour each season. Yikes.
Well, and he's opening the season on the 15-day DL with a right triceps injury. When pitchers are bothered by triceps injuries, is there something that can occasionally occur after that point in time, Rob?
Well, I'm not a real doctor. I didn't know if you knew that.
Well, I know you just play one on this show, but that's why I wanted your opinion.
Yes. Not to my knowledge. I mean, it certainly you'd think could affect the shoulder area, possibly. Time will tell. I noticed one thing that is very interesting from his stat line last year was that he went to the slider more than ever. He started to rely on that more and more over the past few years. It's a trend. Not to the point where I'd be worried about him getting hurt, like, you know, because obviously high slider usage puts a massive strain on the arm, and it's usually a red flag. He's nowhere near that kind of percentage, but he is relying a little bit less on the fastball and a lot less on his change and more on the curve and slider.
Well, let's face it, Rob. As the fastball, as the velocity on that fastball has dropped, okay, he just can't rear back and throw it by people anymore. So he's gone to the slider and attempting to use it as an effective weapon, which, you know, raises even more red flags as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, the other thing is it's a natural progression. He becomes more of a pitcher, less of a thrower, because almost every fastball pitcher over time will have to become more of a pitcher because he can't maintain 95 mile an hour heat forever. It doesn't happen, right? Like as you get older and you lose even just a couple miles an hour, it makes a huge difference, right? Unless your last name is Ryan, of course. Well, there are examples, of course, or Randy Johnson, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
Who just, had rubber arms. But as the difference between your changeup and fastball decreases, the difference there, it's not as effective, right? I mean, the having a huge disparity between those two pitches is what makes it so effective. So that's what really screws hitters up and gets them all like, oh, what am I sitting on your fastball, curveball, and that's how you dominate. We've got to start mixing in that third pitch and mixing things in a little bit more. Anyhow, any other news stories you wanted to discuss before we wrap things up there tonight, Tim?
Well, I think we covered pretty well everything on the agenda, Rob, and I could talk for the next 3 hours should you force me into that situation, so maybe we best just call her a day.
Well, I'm not going to force you into anything, but I would like you to spend a couple seconds if or at least give you the opportunity to plug away at what you're up to these days or anything you want people out there to know about.
Well, I thank you very much, Rob. I'm up to about 6'3", 6'3.5". Hasn't changed in a few years. As far as the sites are concerned, you can find me over at Patton Company, where I am contributing on a regular basis, or at the Prospect 361 Facebook page, spending a lot of time there. And it's a very, very, very busy place. Hats off to Alan Cervanus for putting that together, having a lot of fun with it. And every Sunday night, you can catch me with Rich Wilson on the Prospect 361 podcast. Rob, thanks so much for having me on and giving me the opportunity to share my whereabouts.
Share your what?
That was Canadian for what I'm doing, okay?
Wow,
you big city folks, you got all this grammar down pat. We talk a different language out here in the back 40, bro.
I know, I've edited you to believe me. I'm well aware of the different languages that you speak. At any rate, I appreciate you coming on.
Rob, commas are way overrated, okay? I keep telling you that. You never listen.
If that were the only issue, Tim, I'd be jumping for joy.
Well, let's leave joy out of this. I'm not bringing joy into this discussion at all, Rob.
All right. Well, instead, we'll switch gears and sign up with some Sean Mulray and Open Door, and we'll possibly see you next week, pending NHL/NHL schedule. Okay.
Okay. Thanks again, Rob. It's always a pleasure talking up the game with you.
Absolutely. Have yourself a great night.